Dear students, welcome to the online classes. I am Dr. Babita Timmaya, Assistant Professor, Department of Management Studies from Visvesvaraya Technological University, Mysore. Today, I will be dealing with the module 1, that is of communication. Now, this subject has been introduced with a specific purpose. The subject is business communication. Now, why this business communication? We ought to understand that business has evolved in various forms. Way back, we had sole trading concern, which was managed by a sole trader, a single person with some assistants. Then from the sole trading concern, it moved on to partnership business, wherein two or more people join together to start a business, and then due to certain barriers, the business had its own evolution. So from a partnership, it moved on to a cooperative society and then to joint stock company, and today we see business having the global presence. Today we talk about globalization era. Now, when companies have its global presence, it is very essential to have a proper form of communication. Why is it so? That's because these business will have their head office located somewhere and they'll have their branches elsewhere. Then who are managing this show here? It is the employees and the managers. So under these circumstances, it becomes very essential for the manager to understand what is expected from the management and how that has to be communicated to the employees, and how to extract from the employees in a very diplomatic and sensible and rational manner. And hence the word business and communication has been integrated, and the subject of business communication has been evolved. As blood is important for a human body, communication is important for the organization. Having a proper communication will enable the organization to achieve a high success. So with this, the first module have all this content. We'll be seeing with meaning of communication, then we have the role of communication, then we have the purpose or the objective of communication to look into, then we will try to understand the stages of communication, the principles of effective communication, the importance of communication in management, communication structure, what kind of a communication an organization ought to have. It depends on the organization structure. Then how communication has to be handled when a conflict arises. Then communication in crisis, communication and negotiation, how communication has to happen if negotiation has to exist in the organization. Then communication in cross culture. Now these are the content which I will be taking you all through in the module 1. So let us just start off with the definition of communication, the meaning of communication. The word communication has emerged from the Latin word communis, which means to say share a common understanding. Communication happens among all the living creatures. It could be human, it could be animals, it could be birds in one or the other way. It could be through exchange of words, it could be exchange of ideas, symbols, signs, gestures. So communication is what then? It is exchange of ideas into thoughts or messages through a formal or informal channel to the receiver, with or without the expectation of any kind of feedback from the receiver. We call it as communication. Now, it is transmission of idea by whom? Who is going to transmit the ideas? Who will have the ideas here? The source is the sender. The sender is the person who has the ideas, thoughts, feelings, emotions, all these aspects which he wants to communicate. To communicate what he does, he encodes it according to his understanding and according to the understanding of the receiver he keeps in mind. And then he transmits it to the receiver so that the receiver can understand it. So, in the same, understanding is what we call it as communication. Let us just try to understand, having understood what is communication, what are the characteristics of successful communication. The characteristics goes on with universal. What we mean by universal? Communication is there in all the fields, with all the living creatures, as I said. It is not just with the human, it is also there existing with the birds, it is also there existing with the animals, where we have a tendency to exchange ideas, words, feelings, emotions, symptoms, signs, gestures, and that is why we call it as universal phenomenon. So, communication is a universal phenomenon which we can see in all the living creatures. Then we have communication is unavoidable. Can we stay without communication? Certainly not possible. Communication do exist in the universal phenomenon, and that is the reason it is unavoidable. But silent is also a communication. A person who becomes silent is also trying to communicate something to this other person. It's a negative. Why? Because he feels he's been unheard, and that's the reason the person has become silent. And that is the reason we say communication is unavoidable. It is required. It is a continuous process. Why do you say communication is a continuous process? Because we know that it is universal, it is unavoidable. We have to talk. In the business organization, we cannot isolate ourselves from the group, isn't it? It is the whole organization activity based upon the teamwork. How each individuals are going to contribute effectively for the achievement of the organization goals depends upon your communication. So, it is a continuous process. We like the people, we dislike the people, it is a personal choice, but when we are working in the organization, we are bound to pass on the information what we have received to the required person it has to reach. And hence, we say communication is a continuous process. Then, it is a two-way traffic. In the organization, communication happens to inform and to get some information. So, a sender is sending a message to the receiver with any kind of an expectation in the form of feedback. We say that communication is a continuous process and it is a two-way traffic. It is not one way. Then, it is a short-lived process. Why do we say communication is a short-lived process? Yes, what we are communicating is for a certain purpose. It is for a specific cause. Once the attainment is done, it ends its purpose, and that's the reason we say this is one of the characteristics for a successful communication. Communication is short-lived. It needs proper understanding. Now, to communicate, I am also here standing and trying to communicate something to you all, isn't it? Now, to communicate, first of all, I as a sender or a communicator needs to have a proper understanding of the subject, isn't it? When I have a clear understanding, I will be able to convey it to you people in a right way through a right medium. So, this is another characteristics. Then, leads achievement of the organizational goals. As I rightly said, every business is established with a cause, with a goal, and that we call it as organizational goal. Now, how an organization can attain this goal? Their just duty is not to just produce the goods and services and then sell it. Now, to produce these goods and services, the organization needs to have, every department has to work very meticulously, clearly, with clarity. They need to know what is the purpose. That has to be communicated and made every person understand in the organization. When everybody understands what is the purpose for which they are there, when everybody knows their roles and responsibilities well, when everybody knows what is expected from them, they all will be able not just to attain the goals of the organization, but as well they will be able to attain their goals as well. We are all working here not just to attain the goals of the organization, we are here to attain our personal goals as well, isn't it? How is it possible? If we attain the organization goals, the organization will in turn take care of us. So, a proper communication will help the organization to attain the objectives. Then, it dispels misunderstanding. So, what do we mean by dispels misunderstanding? Having a right communication will enable every person in the organization to understand who they are, what are they, why are they, and what is expected out of them. So, under that circumstances, when every employee knows that, then the misunderstanding in the organization can be avoided. If it is an organization with an open communication, what happens? Everybody are participative in decision making, everybody gets a chance to be heard. Under that circumstances, every employee feel he or she is being heard by the superiors. Every superior will feel her or his ideas are being accepted or heard or taken into cognizance by the management. That leads to smooth flow of information from the higher end to the lower end and from the lower end to the higher end as well. So, what happens? Everybody are productive and energetic. Wastages are less. Resources are effectively utilized. Under that circumstances, there will be less chances of misunderstanding. And it's not just, it avoids misunderstanding. What avoids misunderstanding? Proper efficient communication will avoid misunderstanding. It's not only just that, but also it enhances the morale of the employees working in the organization, and it uplifts the loyalty of every employee. Every employee, no matter whatever it is, they're loyal to the organization. The organization's image in the society is well built, it is recognized, and that this will enhance the goodwill of the organization as well. So, these are certain characteristics of successful communication. To repeat once again, what are the elements one need to have? It should be universal. We need to understand that communication is existing everywhere and it is unavoidable. We cannot avoid. Even the silence has to be understood. Why the person is silent? Then it is a continuous process, it is a two-way traffic, and it is short-lived. And to communicate, one needs to have a proper understanding, and not just that, having all these elements will lead in achievement of the organizational objectives, and it dispels any kind of a misunderstanding in the organization. With this, we will stop here. We'll come back later. Thank you.